Hey, welcome to the 412 podcast. My name is Shea.
My name's Tyler, and our heart behind this podcast is to equip youth pastors, youth leaders, families, and students to do the work that God has called us to build up the church, and to create maximum kingdom impact. Cool beans. Cool beans. The code
All right,
word,
welcome.
The code word will be whiskey. Whiskey.
Whiskey?
Whiskey. Why are you talking that way? Why am I talking what way? Okay, sorry. Hey, hey, what's up?
Hey, welcome to the 412 podcast. Tyler, how you doing this morning, man?
I am jacked up on caffeine.
Dude, I'm with you. My wife texted me this morning. Texted me? No, she woke up right next to me.
Don't you live in the same
said,
house?
We do. I don't know why I thought I texted her my order, so she knew what it was. But she asked me, she was looking at Carter, my son, and she was like, let's go get Dad some coffee this morning. And so she went down to Caribou and grabbed me some coffee. So
Nice.
I am also amped up on caffeine as well.
There you go. My kids were up at 6:30 today, so we made pancakes at 7 a.m. So
Is that normal? Like they up at 6:30 and
it's been normal during this
Okay.
during the quarantine. I don't know. I don't like it. I mean, I want to sleep, but I'm a night owl. I'm not a morning person.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I feel like I used to be a night owl, but I'm not anymore. Now I'm an afternoon person. Like I'm not morning. I'm not really night anymore. I'm just
You just are.
afternoon.
You just are.
Right. I just exist.
There you go.
Awesome.
Well, hey.
Well, Tyler, we had ministry last night. It was Wednesday night.
Yes,
That's
we
our
did.
game day of the week. So I'm interested to hear what did you do last week? What did you do yesterday?
Yeah. So we have been doing our Zoom calls. So our student ministry is called SWAP, Students with a Passion, and so we have kind of branded it right now during this time of stay-at-home orders in our state and everything. And speaking of which, the governor yesterday just announced that our stay-at-home order is going all the way till May 4th, and it is April 9th today. So pray for me. But anyways, so we've been doing it.
The Star Wars joke.
Right, exactly.
I hate Star Wars.
Oh my goodness, we just lost so many
followers. I had to throw it out there.
We just lost so many followers. We've branded our online ministry as a church as a whole as church at home. I think a lot of churches have been doing that. And so we actually have, we call it SWAP at home. And so we've been doing it on Zoom. Basically students come in, we welcome them in, have, do some icebreaker stuff through Sidekick and things like that. And then play some games using largely Sidekick. I mean, Sidekick has been phenomenal. Download Youth Ministry has been giving out, or has been producing so many good resources. I mean, it's incredible. But so we do that, and then we actually go into our teaching. And so we've been teaching. We just actually started a new teaching series called Doubt It. We use the Grow curriculum. I love the Grow curriculum. They provide some great stuff. It's super adaptable. It's one of those, like, they give you the script and you can adapt it to fit your context and everything like that. And then we break off into small groups through Zoom, and you can launch everybody into breakout groups. And then we had a bunch of students stay on last night, and we played Codenames. You ever played Codenames? You know that game?
I have played Codenames.
Okay,
before,
there's a website, and if you get a virus from the website, I apologize, and you can email Shea. But
I'll drop the website in the show notes.
Right, it's horsepaste.com. Horsepaste.com. Don't ask me why.
That sounds like a curse word to me. I don't know.
It does. I actually have to enunciate it really carefully. But horsepace.com, you can play Codenames. It's not actually officially Codenames, but it's the game Codenames. You can play it online, and you can type a URL code so you can send it out to people, everything like that. There's a button to become the spy master. It's sweet. And so we stayed on until like 9:00 last night with a couple youth leaders and some students, and we played Codenames through horsepace.com.
That's really cool.
Yeah. What about you? What'd you guys do? I know you guys have recently transitioned over to the Zoom world.
Yeah. So this week I've actually walked away from doing the one night of teaching, and so I wanted to walk my students through what Jesus did during the Passion Week.
Nice.
I know some people call it the Holy Week. We call it the Passion Week because it fits in with our mission statement, which is passionately pursuing God and students. So we call this the Passion Week. And so each day of the week so far, we've been highlighting what Jesus did on Monday, on Tuesday, Wednesday. And so today I'll put up one for Thursday. And those videos are around 5 to 6 minutes kind of thing for students to listen to. And just so they can get a little insight on, oh, this is what Jesus was doing up until he died. And then what happened Saturday. And then what happened, obviously, Sunday. Spoiler alert, he raises from the dead.
He
And
wins.
then I'll do another video on when he ascends 40 days after. But
Okay.
that's what we've been doing for teaching this week. And it was a nice little sort of a break from a normal teaching series because when we got to Zoom last night, I pretty much sat down with the students. We played Dead Cat. They died on the first question.
It's a great game.
So I gave them another
Also,
extra
the
life.
first question,
and
they're really bad at that.
yes.
Oof.
So they did really well with Dead Cat 1. It's Dead Cat 2 that we're playing that they struggle with on the first question. So we're going to try that
if you're
again
watching
next
this and
week.
you have no idea what Dead Cat is, download Youth Ministry. Dead Cat. It's a phenomenal screen game. It's worth every penny that you pay for it.
Yes, I'll drop Dead Cat in the show notes and the Grow curriculum in the show notes so you guys can go check that out.
So many resources. This is like a treasure chest. Already
Yes.
episode 2 and it's a treasure chest.
I like it. And so we played Dead Cat and that ended by so we started at 6. That was over by 6:15. I'm like, well, that was a lot shorter than I was expecting it to be. And so we just went into because I had no teaching. I wanted to know what it is that now that the stay-at-home was extended, it showed us, that we're probably going to go through at least until May 4th, but possibly longer.
Yeah.
Because the governor did say he doesn't see how schools could go back into session. He doesn't think it would be, profitable at this point to send them back for a month.
Sure.
So we could be doing this Zoom thing even all through May for all we know. We don't really know. So I figured I would just want to have a plan together. And so I'm really just talking to the students about, what is it you guys are experiencing? So I'm trying to get insight on, what is like their daily life look like? Do they have a Google Hangouts lecture classroom? Do they just have a database they just log into and just do work? And there's going to be a mixture of both. And so I said, well, guys, I don't want to just lecture at you with teaching. So tell me what would be beneficial. And so what we ended up landing on was they wanted me to upload a teaching video like I did, keep it 10 to 12 minutes or so. And then their big thing was upload that before Wednesday so they can watch through it. A lot of my students told me that they will click play while they're doing schoolwork and listen to what I'm saying while they're doing schoolwork. So almost like podcast-ish kind of thing. So I thought that was really really encouraging. You guys are listening to it.
It's not like the Charlie Brown thing, the wah, 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 wah,
right.
wah. Yeah.
So it's not like I'm just preaching to nobody. So that was really cool. And then the next thing that they told me was, Shea, please do not teach us on COVID-19 and how to not live in fear. Please just stop. We've heard it from everyone. Our teachers are telling us how to, stay encouraged. So let's just do something else. I'm like, okay, what do you guys want to hear? And so what we ended up coming down to was a series I'm going to create called Once Upon a Time.
Oh, okay.
Because it was my favorite TV show.
Yep.
So I know some people will judge me, but it's an awesome show.
It's a great show.
Better than Star Wars. And then
right now people are going to want to fight you.
So basically I'm just going to walk through the Bible over the next maybe 8 to 10 weeks or so, really just highlighting a different story, breaking it down, and how is that story applicable to our life. And so that's something they all really thought would be really cool because they all know the stories from Sunday school. But if we know anything about Sunday school, they don't really tell you the whole story. They give you the Bible Spark Notes version of the story.
Yeah.
I know Samson is one that they really brought up last night. They were like, one girl was like, Shea, we talked about Samson and the Bible paints him as he wasn't the best guy in the world when he died. But the way I remember him from Sunday school, he sounded like this pretty dope guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
With a great lock of hair.
Right. So it sounds pretty beneficial for us to go through that. And so that's what we determined. And then afterwards, we just hung out on Zoom for a while. I've kept my personal TikTok account away from them on a purpose because I wanted to create anticipation. They were all begging me for the TikTok, and I thought, well, I guess I'll show them. And so I showed them the TikTok, and I was told that it was a cringe fest of a TikTok, but
Yes.
it was extremely funny. And they want me to keep creating videos. So
Nice.
I'm going to go ahead and do that.
I created a
And
TikTok a while back, and I went and it was like friending some of my students, and I friended one of my students, and you know who you are if you're watching, and she responded back with no, and I was like, what? And she's like, you're old, and I was deeply offended.
well, I can tell you, I felt extremely old because one of the girls, uh, I looked at her, like I went to go follow her back, and I was like, I don't know what this means. It says SC colon and then your name afterwards. And she's like, Shay, that's Snapchat. That means Snapchat. And I was
Oh, I'm
like,
glad you explained that, because I was like, I don't know what that means either.
oh, good. So
Yeah.
and then they all proceeded to tell me, they're like, Shay, you just sounded really old by asking us that question. But I mean, one of my students called me middle aged, so maybe I am old. I'm only 26, so
Yeah, I don't know that that defines middle age. I don't know. I
I
mean,
would agree, but apparently my students would disagree. So,
yeah,
but that's what our night looked like. It was a lot of hanging out, figuring out what the next couple
sweet.
weeks look like. And so I'll still be producing content that I'll put up on YouTube, kind of thing, but it'll be something that they can listen to. And then on Wednesdays we'll talk about the teaching that I had in like a small groupish kind of setting.
Nice.
Yeah, so
I like
it was a
that.
very encouraging. It felt like a win last night. So here's a little tip thing that I did. So I have about 12 students, and I put them all in last week, and it was. I mean, Tyler, you have more than 12 students, so you have the breakout rooms feature, which
Yep.
is awesome.
Hmm.
I don't have that because I don't really have another leader to help me. I don't have 2 or 3 leaders really to help me break apart these students. So I split our group in half. So I'll have one half on Wednesday nights, and then the other half is going to be on Sunday nights.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Nice.
that's how so I can try and manage everyone so we can really talk and have that relational hangout time. So
Yeah. Are you doing that
that's
by gender or by grades?
so we're doing it by grade. So
Okay.
I have uh, a bunch of students who are really starting to get close together um, that I noticed, and they range from 7th grade to about 10th grade, and then the other group is literally all seniors.
Mm,
And so I also found it as a really cool time that all the seniors can be in one group, hang out with each other. I get to talk and spend time with them, kind of thing,
mm.
and just really can speak into their life specifically about what's it feel like to be a senior in the midst of the COVID-19 kind of thing too.
Right.
So,
Right.
um,
There's a lot of wisdom in that. I like that.
right. So that was our night last night in ministry, and I thought it was really beneficial and awesome and cool, and it definitely felt like a win last night to give me
Yeah.
direction going forward.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Well, Zoom has been a very good tool, but it's also carried a little bit of what do we want to call it? Baggage with it. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So I actually got a question for the show
there you
already,
go.
episode 2 in. And so the question, and the person asked to remain anonymous, so I'll do that. But they said, with Zoom having so many privacy issues, uh, is it safe for us to continue to use Zoom? My parents have been asking me to possibly find another avenue and another platform. Now, I know I have my opinions on this and how I'd answer it, but Tyler, how would you answer this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've wrestled with that too, because it definitely, like, we as leaders, as whether you're a youth pastor or a small group leader, or I mean, if you're a parent watching this too, I mean, this is a huge question, and safety needs to be a huge concern. It needs to be
Right.
a thing. I think the most dangerous way to use Zoom, I guess, is the way I would say it, is to just create a link, or is that a cat?
That was a
Like,
cat. That's my
uh,
cat Chong. I
there you
promise I'm
go.
not a weed smoker. No.
I just got so distracted. With Zoom, when you take the link, and you just don't put any password on it, and you just shoot it out on social media, what's happening is this thing called Zoom bombing, and basically people are apparently like roving gangs or something. I don't know. They're finding these links and they're dropping it in Reddit chats and things like that, and then they're getting together and they're like, okay, we're gonna go Zoom bomb this group or something like that. I was actually just yesterday, like, true story, yesterday was on a call for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and it got Zoom bombed. Like, all of a sudden there was a guy pops in and you see his name. His name was something inappropriate, and I quick sent a message to one of the guys hosting it, and I was like, danger, Will Robinson, danger. And then all of a sudden it happened so fast. It was like,
Mm,
boop, 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 and people came in, and it wasn't like pornographic, thank goodness, but there was a lot of racial epithets thrown around, and like
mhm.
swearing and things like that, just to intentionally disrupt. And largely that's coming from just on social media throwing out a link and not having it password protected. And so we actually shifted as a ministry, actually just yesterday, partly because of that experience. I was like, oh, I do not want that to ever happen in
Right.
my Zoom youth group setting or whatever. And so we created a password and we sent it out through email and then our texting opportunity, and basically just said, "Hey, here's the password. You can share this with people, but please don't share it on social media." And then there's also great resources out there that are some websites out there that are basically saying, "Hey, here's how you can protect your group." And so, uh, is Zoom dangerous if you don't use it and you don't take the steps to like turn off certain controls? If you're using this as a part of your ministry, I cannot recommend it. I don't work for Zoom. Zoom doesn't pay me anything or anything like that. But the $14.99 for the pro monthly for the pro is worth it because you have so
Yes.
many more controls than in the
Mhm.
free version. Not only do you have unlimited time or 24 hours or whatever it is, but you have so much more control over, like, you can
Right.
turn off the chat, you can turn off, like, you can make it so that only the host can share the screen. That's important. And
Yes.
so I think that, like, Zoom's a tool, right? Just like anything can have its positives and it can have its negatives. And so we need to be careful with that.
Mhm.
And I think as youth pastors and as youth leaders, if we're using this, we need to be understanding how to use it and how to create these safety mechanisms, to safely do it. Now, there's other things about privacy and things like that. Um, I think anytime you're on the internet, you're kind of giving up a little bit of privacy. And so, I
Yes.
mean, we could talk philosophically. That's a little bit theoretical on, like, whatever. But I mean, anytime you're on the internet, uh, um, there's information being passed all the time. I mean, that's what the internet is just information being passed. Now, does that make it right for hacking or anything like that? No. But if you put yourself on the internet, it's I mean, do be diligent, be wise, everything like that. But
Right.
I don't know that I would just throw Zoom out, because it is a great tool. It's Google Hangouts is another one that people have talked about using for our context. Google Hangouts, I think, is only like 35 people can be on it at a time. In
Yeah,
our
something
context,
around that.
we're running between 80 and 90 people, which is pushing the limits of Zoom for the 100 people participant or whatever. And so, like, we could not use Google Hangouts. It just wouldn't work. I mean, we could adjust, but the way that we're using it now, we couldn't use Google Hangouts. And there's other things out there, but I mean, Zoom is the most well known. A lot of people know how to use it. It's simple. It's really easy to use. But on the back end,
Right.
as the leader or as the person running it, read up on it, know how to protect, and I think you'll be okay. Now, if all the parents you're talking with the parents or people are not okay with using it, then don't use it and find something else.
Mhm.
But I think it's a good tool, and if used wisely and used in context or in using it safely, taking those things seriously, I think it's a great tool.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I would just echo everything you said. There's tons of sites to help you set up the settings, but my 1 minute thing, and because I actually had a couple parents reach out to me and ask me this same thing, and so my quick 1 minute answer that I gave to the parents was one. Um, in regards to the privacy policy, because that was one of the things that a lot of my parents were upset about. I mean, I really just put that on the user right there because every program, whatever you sign up for, ask you to read the privacy policy. How many
Sure.
of us just scroll through it, hit accept, and then call it a day? So I don't blame Zoom for that. I blame user error completely. So just make sure you read it. The second thing, though, and this is the biggest thing that I tried to tell parents was I could go out and find another one. I could go find a Google Hangouts. I know Uber Conference is one that started to gain a little bit of traction. But whatever I do, Zoom is the most popular, so they are going to get the most flack right now.
Sure.
And that's why that's happening. And that regardless, and this is the big thing I try to tell the parents that all the parents seem to understand, is that regardless what I go and choose to use, there will be some kind of falling shortness,
Right.
because this is not how God intended us to live. He didn't intend us to live from screen to screen. He intended us to live relationally next to one another. And that this is just, this is a really cool time because it's exposing that, man, we cannot just be social media driven. Like, I saw someone post the other day about, could there be someone do the first online church? And yeah, I think that might come out of this, but I mean, I think what this is really exposing is that, we are people who are supposed to be relational, living with one another, and that we cannot just settle for something like this because there will always be something that falls short.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be the big thing that parents were like, okay, cool. And then obviously, like you said, all the settings, I set them all up in such a way that, if you can hack and get through all of that, then I
Yeah.
don't know, you really need to go find a life at that point
Right.
because
You're
you are
hacking
spending a lot of time.
a
So,
youth group of 10, or a youth group of 50 or 60, or like, okay, bud, like,
right.
go back and play Call of
So,
Duty.
yeah, right. So that was the big thing with the Zoom question. But I know Zoom has been really beneficial in that last night and for us in the coming weeks, it's going to be used for more of that small group kind of setting as
Yeah.
opposed to teaching and running a program. And so I know for the remainder of our episode, we wanted to talk about that realm of small groups,
Yeah.
and the importance of small groups, the benefits of small groups. So Tyler, what is your thoughts on Zoom and small groups, and how do you run small groups at Swap? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think a question that we have to often ask, and I think this is a good question to ask if you're a youth pastor and thinking philosophically over the purpose of small groups. And this isn't just small groups via Zoom. This is really small groups in general. Like, what is the purpose of your small groups? And you might be like, well, it's to be in small group. What are you talking about? Um, and but I think that there's a piece to it, and this is taken. Tiger McClune is a youth guy here in Minnesota that does some great stuff in training leaders and stuff like that. And so this is not any of my stuff. I stole it from him, and he would totally be fine with me stealing it. But he talked about in small groups we have to ask the question, like, what is the purpose of our small group? What are we trying to do? And he talked about there's four kind of parts or areas that you can kind of go in small groups. There's probably more, but these are kind of the four main ones in a small group. Is the small group meant to be relational? Is a
Hmm.
small group meant to be educational? Is a small group meant to be missional? Or is it meant to be like a support group type small group? Now, I think that there can be pieces of each in these small groups, um, but usually it's predominantly runs a certain way. What's kind of your just initial reaction to those four groups?
Yeah, I like it. I think that everyone would say there'd obviously be some people who would say you can fit all four of those into one group. And
Sure.
sure, I'm sure you could do it, but realistically, when you're thinking about youth ministry, you probably have 20 minutes to 40 minutes max in a small group. That realistically, to try and hit on all those could be something you do, but I think it would be more beneficial for us to focus on just one group, like one grouping type,
Sure.
and trying to identify that. And I think doing that is big based upon your context. And so what I think about for me is at the start of our year and last year, we would do our small groups actually before service started.
Yeah.
So we run from 6 to 8. And so 6 to 6:30 was our small groups time. Kids got there, they went right to their small groups. And the reason we did that was because they kept wanting more content. They wanted to be educated more. And so that's what the group was based upon. Like, we're going to, set the stage essentially for the teaching with this small
Mm,
group. Then they'd come out, we'd have an element of fun, we'd have announcements, worship, and then I'd go in and dive a little bit deeper into teaching. And that was really beneficial. But what's cool is that, so a lot of those seniors who wanted that, who really dictated the culture and atmosphere of the group, are now graduating and leaving. And the students that are left behind are saying, Shay, that was really cool. We liked it. but we just want to hang out with one another. So
Mm,
our groups are actually shifting from that educational to the relational aspect, that I might keep it in the beginning just because it's a time for them to hang out. And I feel like it's a cool little, I guess, niche for our ministry that, not a lot of youth groups do it in the beginning. But I think regardless, it doesn't matter where I put it. I could put it in the dead center of it. They just want time to be able to hang out and be
sure.
with each other. And so I don't know if we're at that missional yet. And then I don't know if I've ever seen a support done in youth ministry. Not saying it
Right.
can't be done. I haven't seen it done. But I mean, that might be something as a youth leader that you can do is
Right.
if you're we talked about this, but if you're a qualified counselor, I mean, you could start a support group with, maybe it's high school boys who are struggling with pornography kind of thing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a support group right there that you could do. Maybe you're in more of a mental health driven. There's a lot of students who are struggling with, whether it's suicidal thoughts or anxiety or whatever it may be. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be a support group that you start as well. So I think there's realm for a support group. I'd love to hear if you're doing that. What does that look like for you? And then the missional groups I haven't seen done, but I know, Tyler, you said you have something similar to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and, just thinking, kind of piggybacking off what you said, I think, you might be able to sit here and go, okay, I can fit all four of those into my group time on a Wednesday or on a Sunday or whatever your midweek is, and I think
Hmm.
you could, but I don't know. And this is maybe a philosophical question. You can kind of wrestle with it or whatnot, but really asking the purpose. What is the purpose of these different groups? Because I think you, in your ministry, you can absolutely have all of those things in different places, maybe not all at the same time. So for us, we run, and I like to break it down into like percentages when I'm thinking about it. And this maybe is helpful
Hmm.
for you as a youth leader, that you need to have a conversation with your youth pastor and be like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
volunteering my time. What are the percentages of what you want in these groups? Like, do you want them to be 70% relational and 30% educational? Or do you want them to be, 100% educational? Because it'll change the dynamics of the group. Plus, understanding, if you can understand what you're supposed to be doing in your group, that's going to help you lead better and also know what you're looking for. So we run our programming. We have a few programming different things. So midweek for us is Wednesday nights, and I always tell my leaders that it's 70% relational, 30% like
Hmm.
educational, kind of following up after the message. So ours are after the message, and so a lot of times they're like, we only get through like 4 questions that we have. And I'm like, if you're connecting with people and you're talking about what they want to talk about, and bringing it back to scripture, bringing it back to the Bible, like, I'm okay with that. I want there to be trust. I want there to build that relational bond. And so our Wednesday groups are really 70% relational, 30% educational. On Sunday mornings, we have what we call growth groups, and they're small group based, but they're much more educational. So it's more like 60 to 70% educational and 30% kind of relational. Sometimes they have missional bents to them and things like that. But we run those, and so you can kind of, I think you
Hmm.
can combine two really effectively. When you start getting into three, it gets a little bit hairy.
Right.
Somewhat. But then we also have our missional groups, like our mission trips. So we're meeting as groups, small groups before our mission trips, preparing, and those are much more missional groups. I would love to get a group that's like service minded, orient or service minded. That's like, hey, we want to go to Feed My Starving Children, which is a local food packing place in Minnesota, or we want to go serve at a food shelf downtown, or things like that.
Mhm.
I would love to have, like, kind of foster that. And if you're a youth leader, that's your passion, doing those kind of things, talk to your youth pastor and be like, hey, could I start something like this? Could I get something like this going?
Yeah.
That's a great way to be equipped and to be empowered. And then support group, we don't do that right now. Like, if I'm just being completely honest, we don't have
Mhm.
necessarily support groups. Hopefully within our relational groups, that's happening. But we also, in our church, we have a ministry called Treehouse, and it ministers to at-risk teens. And they have a Tuesday group that actually meets in our church. It's a different ministry, but they meet in our church. They use our building, and so they meet and they do like a support group type thing. So a lot of times I'm sending people that way as a great like ministry partner. But
Mhm.
again, if you're, like Shay said, if you're a youth leader who has, like, substance abuse counseling in your background, or that's what you do for work or whatever, like, you are so, like, valued in this time. Like, I mean, if
Yes.
you're like, use those skills that, or that where God has you placed, use that, and build off of that. That would be a great way, because the reality is as youth pastors, yeah, we have those conversations, everything like that. I, I'm not a substance abuse counselor. Like, I've also never struggled with drug addiction. Like, I mean, so like we need everybody from all walks of life and all journeys coming to Jesus and walking with people, because every student has a story and you have a story, and man, what a way that you could use that to build up the kingdom. If you're a parent, and you're like, well, I don't want to be there on midweek or anything like that, but I would totally be willing to host someone in my house, host a support group in my house. Man, what a great way that you could do that. Just thinking about different ways. And if you're a student who has like stories, like you've walked through just a ton of crud in your life and God has brought you through it and stuff like that, is there a youth leader that you can partner with to help to use kind of your story to build up the kingdom of God? Because that's what it's about, is building up the church, building up the kingdom of God to make maximum kingdom impact. And so really asking those philosophical questions, or having that discussion. Maybe you as a youth pastor need to have this in your next leader meeting and go, what are we doing in small group? And not saying that you're
Yeah.
not doing small group, but sometimes we just do small group to do small group.
We feel like we need to have it in youth ministry.
Right. Right. But are we really asking the question, what are we actually doing? Is there a
Right.
toolbox that we're creating for students that when they graduate, they can leave with, with skills of understanding what community looks like, what accountability looks like, what,
Yeah.
being on a missional looks like, being missional looks like. I mean, what a great opportunity within small groups, to be able to do that. Yeah, teaching, awesome. I love teaching, right? I think it's so important. But really, you can build off of the relational time in the games and stuff like that to build off the teaching, but then also like be intentional with your small group time.
Right. Yeah. That's really good. I would also just add too, that when you think of something like missional, I think we have this idea that we need to be like these superstar missionaries to
Right.
lead a missional small group. But I mean, what just comes to my mind right away is, maybe you're a construction worker, or maybe you're just someone who enjoys woodworking or something like that.
Mm,
That's a great way to get a group of guys, and maybe if there's girls who like it too, together and just go out and, build something together. I mean, to me, that would be a missional group because you see
Gaga
that
ball
as
pit court
serving.
would be
And
awesome for your youth group.
yeah, and you just see like that coming together as a way to like just serve with one another. So don't feel like you have to be like this superstar either, to create this expectation of what a group looks like.
Yeah.
But with that, I think we're going to put a close to this episode. And so if you guys have questions, definitely feel free to follow us on Instagram. We're at the 412 podcast, all one word. And you can send us a DM on there. You can send us an email at 412equip@gmail.com. Or you can also, if you are friends with Tyler and I on Facebook, feel free just to send a private message to one of us too. And we'll make sure that we talk about it and get it processed in the show, and stay up to date with just everything that we're doing here on the 412 podcast. We'd love to provide you with any other resources. So maybe it's not a question we answer on the show, but we can just answer right there on the spot for you,
Totally.
or provide you with the resource. So thanks again for listening to this week's episode. My name is Shea, and this is Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. And our heart beats to equip people, youth pastors and youth leaders and parents and students to make maximum kingdom impact, to build up the church and ultimately glorify God. And so with that, we'll see you later.